France and Britain are to step up patrols of the English Channel over reported rise in the number of migrants attempting to cross the waters in small boats. Well, British Home Secretary Sajid Javid declared it as a major incident, while UK opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn called for humanity for those seeking a better life. Well, I'm joined now in the studio by Alistair Sanford for more on this. Well, as we've been hearing, France and the UK are going to set up some joint action plan, but what are they going to put into place?
Yes, Isabel, it's described as an enhanced action plan to be put in place over the next week. It's thought to involve more efforts to combat people trafficking gangs, as well as raising awareness amongst migrants and refugees of the dangers of crossing the Channel in small vessels. The UK and French interior ministers have spoken by phone. They've been tweeting about it. Sajid Javid is to chair a meeting of the relevant UK authorities today. And the French authorities have been disrupting numerous crossings of the Channel. That's according to the UK National Crime Agency. The UK has had a debate about whether there should be more patrols in the Channel, because it's argued that could act as a magnet and encourage more people to try to make the crossing if they see these patrols as effectively as rescue boats. The UK has some 6 specialist boats, but a number of them are on duty in the Mediterranean. There are suggestions that they should come back. There have also been calls for some quarters for the armed forces to get involved, the Royal Navy to be called in, and the Defence Secretary says, well, they're on standby if needed. But the Home Secretary says there are no easy solutions here. Clearly, there are concerns that lives are in danger if more people try to make this very dangerous crossing across one of the world's busiest shipping groups. Where do many people come from? Many from Iran, many from Iraq, and of course fleeing war in Syria and Afghanistan. Why are there suddenly more crossings now, it seems? Well, different reasons are being mooted here, but France has been moving to close the makeshift camps that did exist along the northern French coast. And it's suggested that some traffickers have been saying to people, you need to try to make this crossing now because the borders are going to be reinforced even more when Brexit takes effect.
But Alistair, if we put this into context and we go back to 2015 when there was the migrant crisis in Europe, when nearly 1 million migrants reached Europe's shores, is there some sort of concern here that these figures are being overblown? Well,
let's be clear about this. Yes, compared to other influxes of migrants and refugees that the world has seen, the numbers are tiny. The International Organization for Migration says it's easy to stir passions, but the numbers are very small compared to what other European nations have had to deal with. It's thought that perhaps a couple of hundred people have tried to make the crossing over the last couple of months. There are reports saying that 100 have done so since Christmas, but you compare that to the tens of thousands who arrived in the 2015 migration crisis. There are Syrian refugees numbering some 3 million in Turkey. Even in the UK, tens of thousands every year make legal asylum applications having come over by plane. So it's clear there's been a quiet news week. There's lots of alarmist coverage. The papers are talking about a crisis, but refugee groups say every asylum seeker has a right to make an asylum claim. The church has called for compassion. Local charities are talking of a rise in the number of lone child refugees. That said, of course, there's genuine concern that if more people try to make this crossing, that lives could be lost.
Allegations of intimidation, arrests and violence have overshadowed Bangladesh's parliamentary elections. The opposition has called it farcical and has demanded a new vote. At least 17 people were killed in clashes between ruling party supporters and the opposition. The Bangladesh Election Commission has said that it's heard vote-rigging allegations from across the country and has promised to investigate. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her Awami League has run Bangladesh since 2009 and has sought to secure a 3rd consecutive term. She's credited with improving the economy and promoting development, but her critics accuse her of corruption and oppression. At least 28 candidates from the main opposition alliance withdrew before polling closed on Sunday, alleging vote rigging. But the ruling party has consistently dismissed warnings from activists and observers that the vote would not be fair.
People are being killed, people are being arrested, candidates are being arrested, and one candidate is unprecedented, unheard of, could not be dreamt of. I could not even dream of this. Even a bad dream, nightmare, I could not think that in Bangladesh after 47 years, I would have to see this and hear this. Impossible.
Hasina's government has denied the accusations, and her party says many of its own workers have been injured in attacks by the opposition. Paul Ging, Euronews.
New Year's Day will see a new role for Romania as it takes over the EU's rotating presidency for the first time. With EU Parliament elections, Brexit and a migration crisis at hand, Romania will help set the agenda for what is expected to be a pivotal moment for the bloc. But what direction will the EU take with Romania at the helm? Well, we're joined now from Bucharest by a former director within Romania's Ministry of Justice and anti-corruption activist Laura Stefan from NGO Expert Forum. Well, good morning. Thanks so much for being with us on the programme. So as we were saying, Romania takes the head of the EU presidency, but there is growing concern over the rule of law in the country. Can you outline some of the EU's main grievances with Romania?
Ever since the current ruling coalition took power back in 2016, there have been constant attempts to undermine rule of law and to pass a large amnesty legislation that would basically clear allegations and convictions for corruption against political leaders. That is, of course, something brutal, which the EU sees as unprecedented. There have been constant comments and urges to Romania to review its conduct. But so far, even despite the massive protests that we have seen in the street, leaving aside the international comments that Romania has received from the Venice Commission, from the European Commission, Romanian leaders are really obsessed about their own legal problems, about not going to jail. We have seen really a government that has only one priority, and that is to keep political leaders out of jail, to keep their fortunes in their pockets rather than in the state estate. So I think that's one main concern that the EU has with regard to Romania. The second being that we lack a vision of what we should do, what should our priorities be in terms of our presidency. In a way, I think we're lucky that we don't have very clear priorities from Romania, because if we would have some, they would mostly be along the lines of nationalistic and populistic statements that we hear every day.
What are ordinary Romanians hoping for from this EU presidency?
I don't think ordinary Romanians can or understand very much what it means for a country to have the presidency. In a way, I think this is a failed opportunity for Romania. We failed the chance of reaching inside the country and explaining to the people what the EU is and how the presidency is important, but also outside of Romania, towards other EU member states. We failed the chance of presenting ourselves as a mature country that knows where it's heading to.